What's the most important thing you need for a fine art print? The artwork. Join me as I paint a collection of abstracts that I'm going to turn into prints. Hi there, I'm Janine. I'm an artist and I share my creative journey on this channel. I've been wanting to create prints from my paintings for a long time. I don't want to turn paintings I'm already selling as originals into prints though. I'm worried it might make owning an original piece of art that's unique less attractive if there are also prints of that piece out there. But that's probably just me worrying too much. Instead, I'm going to create a few paintings on paper that I can turn into prints and only sell them as prints. And I'm going to take you along with me. I have a lot of leftover colours from my previous series, so I want to start with using up some of those. And I'm using A3 paper because I want the prints to be up to A2, which means I can enlarge them to double the size, which isn't too tricky. I'm just filling the whole background. I'm not trying to get an even layer of colour down. I just want to get something down on the page. And I'm adding a little bit of water just to make it spread easier. It really does matter if there's bits of the paper still showing, but I'm sort of covering it anyway. Just leave those marks. Maybe they'll come in handy later. Now I want to go in with another colour. Let's try something a little bit brighter. On this kind of calligraphy brush. I'm just going in without thinking really. There will be more layers on top and this will probably not be very visible at the end, what I'm doing now in these early stages. So I'm just playing with the materials. Just mixing this paint with a little bit of water so it flows better. I really like the softness of this brush. Let's try a different colour here. I want something slightly green. I have a blue here that I could mix with this more yellowish beige. Do that on my palette, and I've still got a little bit of the yellow on my brush anyway, so that might already make it a bit more green. It's not very green. We'll go for it anyway. It's more like a neutral grey colour. I love how there's still a little bit of yellow in the base of the brush. That mixes those two together. That's really nice. Let's do this on the dark here as well. This is still a little bit wet in places, so it'll probably mix together. I'm just really enjoying pressing this down and then seeing how the yellow turns up. So I'm making more of that. Make something a little bit more solid. More of an opaque area here. Also got this blue colour here. Dark blue. I'm just going in with my brush that's still got the beige on it. It actually separated a little bit here. It's a bit of liquid, which is more intense. Let's get some of that. I think this one's mixed with ultramarine. So at the moment I'm only really getting some paint down onto the paper and starting to build some layers without any intention really. The only intention being that I want to create quite a bit of visual texture. This one's actually got some really interesting texture here from where the paint was really wet and then dried into like a watercolory blooming effect. That's got a slightly different colour at the edge because the pigments have separated there. What I'm going to do here, still got some of the bluish colour on the brush. I might get some of this, which is like a muted green, and mix that in with the beigey colour to make more of a light green. Then we can add some of this green here as well. I might actually use a different tool this time. Let's use this silicone blade that I like. This makes a nice transparent layer with some more opaque edges. That's really interesting, where it scraped away the slightly wet yellow paint and now you can see the pink paint underneath again. I'll do that on here as well. It's funny how the beige looks really light in the tub, but then once you put it onto paper where it is actually light, it looks really dark. I think here, because I've got all warm colours, I'm going to use this light blue, which is a cool colour, just to add some contrast. Let's go in with a dark colour, this purpley red. Here the blue underneath has already dried a little bit, so that stayed in place, and then it's just got a transparent layer over the blue. But that blue ridge is showing very well. Let's go darker here as well. Let's try the blue instead. It's dark blue. Let's try a small brush, like this one. Just a small round brush, and I'll add some of this red. Changing up your tools and your sizes of brushes really just helps to add interest. And now this is mixing here with the blue that's still wet. I'm creating a slightly different texture. And then I'll add some of this beige with the smaller brush. I want to add another colour here, so I think I'm going to use that yellow that I had earlier. Just in a few places. And later on I might add some more primary colours to add a little bit more saturation. Because if everything is kind of the same sort of muted, then it doesn't look as muted, or the colours don't come out as well as if you have something to contrast the muted colours with. So if you have more saturated colours next to the muted colours seem more muted, and the saturated colours seem more saturated. I really like all these stripes that are appearing at the edges. I've noticed that happening in my work quite a bit lately. I think I want to try that on another one as well. So we've got this one here. Let's continue with the yellow for now. So this already got like more colour blocks on the edge. So I'll add some of that here. Maybe here as well. And I'm blending colour into this one here with a bit of dry brushing. And then wherever there's little gaps, I might add some patches of colour of this yellow.
If you like this video, consider subscribing.
And I'm kind of painting around those shapes that I made earlier with that round brush. a little bit up here, this gap. Then I'm going to add some of that red again. I'm now kind of starting to work with the shapes that I've already made on here. I'm changing the colours, changing their shapes a little bit. For no real reason other than that is quite fun to do. But then I always leave little bits of the layer underneath still showing through. If I do this here, you realise that it was light here before, so this is now a darker value. So this kind of connects this shape with this shape because they're more similar in value than the light colour that was there before. So now this reads kind of as one big shape, almost. I really like what's starting to happen here. These very textured shapes. This has probably got the least on at the moment, but I really like it because it's got this almost gradient and it makes it really interesting. And also there's large shapes and not lots of bittiness, but I will add the bittiness first to create the interest and then probably go back over it to achieve something more spacious like there is now. So let's go in, let's just also do the yellow. I'm really enjoying the yellow today. And I'm enjoying dry brushing as well today. And if you're not familiar, dry brushing is basically just using a brush with not very much paint, with very little paint and also very little water. So it's quite dry paint, and then just scrubbing over the surface, which makes it a kind of textured but also transparent layer. It's great for visually blending colours, but still keeping them textured. Right, let's do some more hectic marks. And then let's also add a little bit of dark. Let's try that palette knife again. So it's now probably going to get worse before it's going to get even better later. There's always this point where painting's quite minimal, but I do really like it, but it doesn't have enough depth yet, so I have to paint over that and make it look a bit worse, and then eventually it'll get better than it was before. Do a little bit of that same colour with this little brush. Maybe emphasize a few of the areas and make them a bit more solid. Let's try and use this larger brush again, and I'm going to make it a little bit more diluted. The good thing about knowing that these are going to be prints is that I don't have to worry about it being archival or staying in place. Like you know how they say you shouldn't mix your acrylics with too much water or it won't bind to the surface. Well, it's not going to have to for a long time, only until I've made the prints. So I can really lean into the more watercolour-y effect that I do really like. with both watercolour and acrylics. I really like this texture here. That's very cool. This one doesn't have any yellow in it yet. I'll add some water first, and then go in with some of the yellow. I'm basically just glazing over some of the areas, so adding a transparent layer because I've diluted the paint a lot with water. And you can obviously add medium to make your paints flow better, but there's just something about water that has quite a unique way of reacting on the surface. I love this here. I'll start adding some lighter colours. I should start getting some white out, but let's stick with these for now. I also have this pink. Oh, yeah, I did use that at the beginning for the backgrounds, but not since. So let's do that. Maybe I'll add some of this green again. I say green, it's more like a slightly green tinted grey. Let's use some water. I'll mix this colour that I'm putting on in with the one that's underneath a little bit better. I've got a few more bright colours out. So I've got this magenta and yellow oxide, which I've already got out on my palette. And then I want to start adding some different materials, like these acrylic paint markers. These are by Liquitex. And I've also got out some of my Neocolor II crayons, which are water soluble. I'm sure you've seen these before. I really love working with these. Let's start with the paint pens, because I don't really want to go over the Neocolor with paint pens if I can help it, because paint pens will pick up the pigment. That's a mouthful. Pick up the pigment and clog up the nibs. And I really like these chunky nibs because you can make finer lines, but you can also make really wide strokes. And if you twist the pen, then you get a lot of variety in your line. And I also have these Posca pens, which are also the biggest nibs. They do 8mm on the lip, like that. Here's a bit of a darker colour, which is slate grey. What I'm doing now is connecting some of the darker value shapes together to make some bigger shapes. I just saw this shape here, this dark shape, so I wanted to repeat that. Maybe I can do that in a few other spots. Like I have this shape here, and there's already a shape there. Maybe I could do another one between. And this little one. So I've got like a row of shapes now. And then also I'll make this shape a bit more prominent. Get rid of some of these white bits that aren't very clear. Make their value a bit darker. And now that I've made quite a few random dots, I like to connect a few of them just to make some different sized shapes. I really like twisting the pen because that makes very uneven lines. I feel like I need to break up this large dark shape here. I'm going to start adding some of the Neocolor. Start with some yellow here. Actually, I should probably let this one dry a little bit more. So these are water soluble. I'll add some water to them. You can kind of create this lovely glaze over everything. And you can also wet the surface first and then draw into that, which makes the line a lot more creamy. This is a lighter one. Sorry, the other one was English red, and this one is, I'm not sure, flesh. I think it's got a different name now. I'll put it in the description box. The thing to note with the Neocolor and pastels in general, or soft pastels, is that once you fix them with the spray fixative, they will look darker. So they're really nice and bright now, but they will look darker later on. I'll start with some water here too. You can also spray the surface with, this is simply water in a spray bottle. You can just spray that over your paint and then go in with your Neocolor or whatever. The paint pen hasn't quite dried yet. I like how the lines are quite similar to what I did with the acrylic paint pen, but the quality of the line is so different. Like the acrylic one is so defined and this one is very blurry. I love that contrast. I quite like this line where I'm actually going horizontally but across. Sorry, vertically but across. This one's quite dark, so I'll start adding some light things into here. I always find this is the pure white, and I always find that to look really chalky, but you can always go over it again. So let's just add some of that. Now these are very obvious, but what's really nice about these is that I can just sort of erase certain areas. Now there was a little puddle here and I'm dragging the water around with the Neocolor, which is quite fun. I think I'm going to do that again with the yellow up here. This dark one is burnt sienna. Where there's a ridge of paint, when I go over the line, I kind of slide along the ridge. It's quite interesting. Here where those light dots were a bit too light, I'm just adding a glaze of this to make them blend into the other colours a bit better. Let's do the same over here. And I'm just adding a little bit of visual texture here and partially erasing that again. Same here. Let's also use maybe that pink. Just where there's quite plain area still. I'm just building up texture in these early layers and then I can edit later on. Oh, I like that pink haze over here. A bit more of the English red. Maybe some on the edge here. I really love this actually, all the colours here. This colour is salmon. I'm actually going to spray some waterfess all over. I'll try another haze of pink down here. It's now mixing with the light colour that I've got on my brush. Actually, I really like this. I think this piece needs a bit of warmth, so I might add some yellow in a minute. Even though this is a very cool yellow actually. What is this? It's just called yellow. It's almost like a lemon yellow. I'll spray this one as well. Some of these lighter areas still need a little bit of texture. Let's actually mix those two, the yellow and the pink. And then I'll add some of the burnt sienna because it's quite bright already. I can do with the darker, more neutral colour. And that blue paint pen feels quite cool compared to everything else here, so I want to replace some of that with this warmer brown. Quite like this line here that I've created. I might try and do that somewhere else. They're all quite bright already now, as in saturated colours, so I'm not sure I will add those. It might be enough already. Maybe just a few dabs here and there. Let's get some of this pink. But it will be underneath more layers. So you just get little glimpses of these bits. Just emphasize a few of these already pink bits. This also just adds a bit more variation to the yellow, because I've got the yellow from the paint pen, then that kind of yellow that I pre-mixed, and now the yellow oxide. So in some areas you'll have a really nice variation of the yellow. First layers always look particularly messy, and next I can start editing and refining the paintings. Stay tuned for that. What are your thoughts on prints? Do you buy art prints for your own home? Have you created prints and have any tips for me? Let me know in the comments. If you want to see me paint some simpler abstract sketches, watch the video I've linked in the description box. Thanks and bye bye.